So I'm just heading to Herald Square to meet up with Javier. Really excited to talk to him. He's actually a fantastic YouTuber. He talks about creative tech, gear, tutorials on creativity, Premiere Pro. He also has a podcast called Passion in Progress. So today I want to talk to him a little bit about that process. As you know, I'm starting a podcast soon. I'd love to know how his experience has been making a podcast. It's pretty dope. You gotta check it out. Are you down in the station? Okay, perfect. See if we can find Javier down here. Found him.
How's it going?
Yeah. Oh. He brought me gloves. I'm so happy.
We just got caught up in talking about all the awesomeness.
Why is it showing up on that side
It's okay.
and not on that side?
It's okay.
We got this.
Yeah.
We're looking for a place to warm up, get some tea or coffee. Whatever it is you prefer. This is definitely the place. Okay, so we're here with Javier Mercedes,
Yep.
Merce Nation.
Merce Nation. Hashtag. What is up, Merce Nation? Javier Mercedes here for Not My Video.
Love it. He has an amazing podcast called Passion in Progress. It's fantastic. I will link all of this below or up here, all of the above. And I wanted to talk to him today about his process of starting that podcast. How many episodes in are you?
So as of this recording, I've released 36 episodes.
It's weekly, right?
Yeah, every Wednesday.
Woo-hoo-hoo. So 36 weeks.
Yeah.
I'm very interested in how you're doing it, how it's been going so far, and if you have any tips for me and anyone else who wants to start a podcast.
If you already have the idea for the podcast down, I mean, most people, like, if they're going to pursue the podcast, it's more about the technical aspect and other things of that nature, and then what works to promote it and all that other stuff. So if you're needing to Google anything about starting a podcast, Pat Flynn is definitely the main resource, and he'll pop up. When you're doing a podcast, you can use any kind of service, be it like Podbean, Anchor. There's other ones like that, and what I use though is Libsyn, and Libsyn is pretty widely known. There's like two syndication services, and what I mean by that is Libsyn is a service that you create your MP3, you record your podcast, right, and you need to, how do you get it on iTunes, how do you get it on Spotify and all that other stuff?
Yep.
You upload it to a service like Libsyn, and then Libsyn takes that and puts it everywhere. They're a syndication service. So
amazing.
That's the first thing.
Okay.
And the reason why Libsyn is so cool is because one, the analytics, and two, once you start to get bigger, there's other things that you can do with Libsyn. It's a paid service, but as you grow, it's one of those things that if if your library was there, it's so much better. The next bit of advice I will say is when you make your podcast, try and make it the smallest file size as possible. It's mono file in 64 kilobytes per second in MP3.
Okay.
And not many people know that. And that's not really, I don't think there's anything set in stone. But the reason why I bring that up is because when you get a podcast on your phone, it takes up a whole bunch of space. It takes up whatever the MP3 takes. Imagine downloading all the videos that you watched on YouTube on your phone.
Yeah.
It doesn't. You'll definitely hear a difference in the quality, but it's a podcast. Like people are used to hearing that kind of quality.
Yeah.
What I do, since I film all of my podcasts, I actually go into Premiere and I export from Premiere. I hit MP3 and then I go and I make sure it's mono, and then I hit 64 kilobytes per second, like in the actual export settings.
Right.
So that's like a little nitty gritty tip for you in terms of like physically producing the podcast. The next part is you throw it into iTunes and you make your ID3 tags. You have to make it acceptable, or you have to follow the right procedure in labeling and doing all the right things for the MP3 itself to get it on iTunes. And if it doesn't meet that criteria, then iTunes, it won't show up there. But the cool thing about Libsyn is you put it in there and then it throws the error. It's like, hey, by the way, we found that you tried to put this in there. It's not going to work.
Okay.
When you're filling out your ID3 tags, it takes time every single week. So if you just have a little, I don't know, note spreadsheet thing where you just copy and paste the, like, what's the author of the podcast, then you can copy and paste that and all that kind of stuff. And then you just type in the info and all that stuff. A lot of the people that are already like associated with you don't even know what a podcast is. Which is interesting, but like even my own little sister, I was like 20 podcasts into my own show, and she thought she had to pay for it. When you're telling people about the podcast, how do you tell them where it's at? And then two, like when you interview somebody, the person that's getting interviewed, when they share out that they did a podcast, what link are they going to share?
Yeah.
So that led me to building my own website, and then with that, I have a landing page where I film all of my podcasts. So there's a YouTube link, and most of the time, since everybody knows what YouTube is, they'll end up sharing that. But the big thing is, your audience retention on YouTube will not be as good as an audio podcast. Yeah. So for me, when I started out, my podcast was really an engine to get me to the 4,000 hours watch time. And it really helped. Yeah. But on average, I will say for my podcast on YouTube, I get about 14 to 10% audience retention on a podcast. But you got to remember, for an hour-long podcast, that's still like 15 minutes.
A lot of watch time. Yeah.
That's still feel like 15 minutes, but that's the average. So there's also like 15 to 30% of those people are staying for the whole video. So I could have one podcast that only has like 100 views, and then one video that pops off and has like, I don't know, like 1,000 views. Yeah. But that one podcast could still have way more watch time.
Way more watch time. Very cool. How far in advance are you reaching out to people to be a guest on your podcast?
Getting people in my own city of Austin, Texas sometimes seems much harder than if there's a set deadline. So I'm here in New York, and like I can say to the people that I want to get on the podcast, hey, I'm going to be there from here to here. Yeah. And then that somehow, and I think the other thing with that too is other people that are part of your network help you out. Yeah. So that also, like my brother-in-law helped me get a whole bunch of guests while I was here. So I was like touring around, and he was the liaison, he was the connection. Gotcha. As your Rolodex builds, then you can ask your past guests if they had a good experience with you. Like, hey, do you know anybody in this city? Yeah. And go on that whole thing. That's how I'm doing. But I like obviously, if you're doing a podcast and you're not like doing them in person, then it's a little bit easier to reach out to people to do them. But I will say I try to stay at least 2 weeks ahead. Okay. The longest I've been ahead was kind of right around when I started. I had 7 episodes. I was 7 episodes ahead at one time. Okay. Which can be a blessing and a curse because you could start to get rusty in the actual podcasting realm. Right. But it was also nice because while I had that many episodes together, it gave me the time to actually build my website, start my YouTube thing, do all of the other business. Like I was starting my business account. I was literally just starting my business at that point in time. Gotcha. So like having that many backed up and not having to scramble to find guests was like so nice. But then once it started to trickle down, that's when it got to the point of like, oh, okay, we should
gotta get back in the flow of this.
Yeah, exactly. But once you start doing it, a lot of the people that you're surrounded with will start to reach out. And the other thing is, like, when you do start doing it, if you start posting it to places like Reddit and LinkedIn, random people will reach out to you and they'll be like, interview me. Okay. And some of them are like, cool. Some of them are like, no. Right. So, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I love it. Those are the technical details and some really good tips for how to promote a podcast.
Yeah, the last thing I'll leave you with is the biggest thing I will say is if you want to promote your podcast, any guests that you have on, find the specific niche. I have a video on this, and it was about, I released one of my videos one of my podcasts, and it took me like 3 days to edit. I interviewed 2 Olympians, and one was a jiu-jitsu Olympian, and the other one was Greco-Roman wrestling.
Okay.
I released the podcast, and that day I only had 7 views on it. And it took me like so long to do it, and I was like, what the heck? Because I knew the content was really good. Then I posted the YouTube video to Reddit in the judo community and in the wrestling community.
Yeah.
So find the actual people that would want to watch whatever said thing is on Reddit. And if people aren't familiar with Reddit, just go into the search bar, type in the main subject of whatever your niche is, and then over to the right is create post, drop the link in, and then the best advice I could say with posting on Reddit is make it as detailed as possible. This is what's worked for me. So for me, I actually told as much of my story as I could in that post. So I was like, hey, I got to go out to Colorado and I interviewed the 2-time Olympian judo person and somebody that coached the 2016 Greco-Roman, was a whatever world's champ, blah, blah, blah. And then that whole post was like, people on Reddit, if they know what they're getting into, then they can upvote it. It's not gonna like get downvoted because they're like, oh, it's in the title, like this is exactly what you're getting.
Yeah.
So what that did is it took it from 7 and then it took it to like 300 and some views within like a couple hours.
Okay.
So that's what I'll say. And then the other part of it is the actual people that you interview, having them share it out to whoever they are. That's the biggest, because obviously those are the people that want to know about the podcast.
For sure. I need to figure out when I'm actually going to commit to starting it. But
it'll
happen at some point. Okay.
Merce Nation.
I hope it's still recording. Okay, good. That is officially the end of this episode. Fantastic time hanging with Javier Mercedes today. Thank you so much for coming out with me. That was amazing to have his help. It's amazing that all of these creators come out, we support each other, we shoot for each other. It's just a really fun community to be a part of. But for now, I'm Alex Gasaway, and this is Growing Ambition, a daily vlog. If you're interested in entrepreneurship, social impact, creativity, go ahead and subscribe, and do all the things. I'll see you tomorrow.